My name is Zoe, and in this video, we are going to be looking at how to dance to a violin. So this is part of my Taqassim tips series, in which we explore how to dance to different instruments that are used commonly in Middle Eastern music. So let's jump right in, looking at the characteristics of the violin, and then we'll talk about how we can dance to it. Bellydance breakthrough. So the violin itself, which I have here, my violin, to help demonstrate, is traditionally in Western classical music, and in the traditional Middle Eastern music, they used similar other stringed instruments, such as the rababa or the kamanga, or you might hear violin even called kamanga or kaman. And those instruments, while they are still in use, a lot of the times in the Middle Eastern classical music, they have been replaced by the violin. And that started around the end of the 19th century, so it's been going on for quite a while. So the violin at this point is quite a solid component of Middle Eastern music, and you will find it a lot. So let's talk about the characteristics of the violin. It is a stringed instrument, so like the oud, which also had strings, but the difference is that while we mostly pluck the oud, and we can as well pluck the violin, right? The normal sound that we associate with the violin would be using our bow. So, as you can hear from the sound, we can get this wonderful, long, drawn-out sound on the violin, and it is quite an emotional instrument. Some people call it the instrument that is closest to the human voice, because you can really make it sound almost like it's crying at times. I mean, I can't because I'm not a very advanced violin player. But you can do like these nice crescendos, so something like. Yeah, so you can really hear the emotion in that sound. It's a very emotional instrument because of those lovely, long, drawn-out sounds. Of course, we do have the plucking, as I said, and we have like trills and things, so like. Like something faster, like that. But yeah, in general, the sound we associate most with the violin would be those wonderful, long, flowing sounds. In terms of the range of the violin, the lowest note is the G below middle C, so this note. Whereas on a Western violin, the highest string, because we have 4 strings, would be an E that is above the C, above middle C, if that makes sense. I think that's E5, and that would be this. But actually, in Middle Eastern music, usually they would tune the violins in fifths. So instead of going G, D, A, E, it goes G, D, G, D. So it would be here. Yeah, of course we can go much higher by moving our fingers all the way up the fingerboard. Apologies in advance, we get notes like this. Yeah, and if you're a better player than I am, probably you can make that sound better. But the violin can go up quite high, and it doesn't go down that low. So the range is mid to high, roughly the range of a female or soprano voice, higher than probably most sopranos, certainly most women can sing, but around there. Also, like the oud, the violin is fretless. So if you watch that video, as you remember, that means that on the violin we can play all of the quarter tones and all of those in-between notes that are not found in Western classical music, but that are a key part of Middle Eastern music. So, for example, a normal minor scale might start like this. Whereas in Middle Eastern music, we could play this one. It's a very, very small difference, but it is important. Those first four notes are the first four notes of the makam rast, which is one of the most essential makams in Middle Eastern music. So again, we have the difference. Versus you hear that? So that interval is really, really important in Middle Eastern music, and that is part of why the violin was so well adapted to Middle Eastern music, because we can already play all the notes that are needed. So, now that we have looked at the characteristics of the violin, let's talk about how we can dance to it. So, the main characteristics that I like to keep in mind in dancing to the violin are A, that range, mid to upper, and that emotionality to the violin. So for me, the violin is very connected to the heart, because that's where the center of our emotions are, at least kind of the way that we portray that in dance. So most of the movements I do to a violin are always focused around my heart, around that chest area. So all of the chest movements I'm using a lot. So that is your vertical chest circles or horizontal chest circles, any of the chest eights, the vertical eights, horizontal eights, and the combination horizontal vertical eights. As always, I will link to the videos describing the technique of those movements in the description for this video, so you can check those out if you want to review some of those chest movements. But all of those chest movements are great. You can even add a little shimmy at times when there's, say, maybe a trill or something, or if there's some percussion, there might be a bit of percussion going on underneath. You can add a little chest shimmy on top, or a hip shimmy, and then do the chest movement on top of that as well. Also, arm movements for this, but unlike the ney that we talked about before, the arm movements I tend to do for the violin, again, they're always emphasizing the heart. So it's a lot of in and out to really show that emotionality. I also will go even further, doing something like a tenlier with a lean and adding the arms on top of that. So really showing how much the music is affecting you, how much that violin is really pulling at your heartstrings, yeah? Almost, so it's, yeah, almost being pulled, right, by that emotion. And even a bigger circle, something like that. This is not to say I don't do any hip movements. I will do some of the basic hip movements, the eights, the ummies, things like that. But they're almost always coming up into the chest, and there's just kind of that feeling. Shoulder rolls also are great because that's still in this area. And yeah, I'm doing some pliés and coming back up to just, yeah, a lot of that kind of melting feeling. It's It's very emotional. I think I've said that like 20 times, so probably you've gotten the point. So, yeah, for the violin, basically think heart area, think emotion. We can have big drawn out movements. Again, remember drawing the bow across the string. We can have a similar feeling in our body. I hope that makes sense. So, let's turn on some music and try to dance to a violin Taqassim. As always, you can follow along with me. I'm just going to be improvising, as I always recommend, two Taqassims, which are musical improvisations. So you can follow me if you want, you can do your own thing, but let's keep in mind those kind of principles of how we can really bring out those emotional, heart-rending qualities of the violin. So, that was a quick little guide to help you how to dance to the violin. I hope that you found this video helpful. If you did, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel. Thank you so much for watching, and happy practicing.